Greetings, Dapplings, and welcome to From the Depths, a special episode of From the Depths, more to the point. In this episode, we are not going to be progressing the campaign, nor are we going to be working on our fleet. As you may notice, those of you who are not running the development branch may pick up on the fact that I'm running a different version, that is 1.853. This is the development test branch, and in this version of the game, we have a sneak peek of the advanced cannon system. So I thought I'd take some time to just gloss over what is possible and build a couple of cannons on screen. I've had a few people mention that the cannons are very difficult. Also, there's a lovely new wood texture, absolutely gorgeous. But have mentioned that the cannons are a bit difficult to get their heads around. But I actually found them more or less fairly straightforward, honestly. So I thought it may actually be useful to quickly put together a very, very simple little build. In fact, you know what? Let's not build on this. Let's go build on a structure. Now we're going to be working on a structure just for the stability, and we are going to be putting together a couple of cannons. As I mentioned, a few people have seemed to be having problems with getting their heads around the way the cannons work, or at least it's taken them a while to actually get to grips with how to build them. There's no real documentation to speak of, unfortunately. There's the kind of little blurb text that the game gives for any structure, really, but other than that, you're on your own. Now, that isn't too terribly bad, all things told. I'm really loving the wood textures, oh my lord. Right, go ahead and fill that side, go ahead and fill this side, so we've got a nice platform, and there we go. That should do. Really? You failed at that point? Why? Why have you failed me? Phil. Oh my lord. Why? Also, so squirrely, the textures. Never mind. Right, okay, we've got a structure, and let's hop up on top. Now, the advanced cannons are much more complicated to work with in the initial setup. But overall, I find that they're actually pretty cool. Now, I find the first thing that is useful to do is build your ammo. Now, you actually have to make ammo this time. Let me just show you the advanced cannons here. Quite a lot of stuff. As you can see, railguns kind of stick out, but we'll get to that in a bit. Now, just as a forward, this is not going to be a comprehensive tutorial or anything of that nature. I'm just going to be building a couple of cannons on screen so you can see roughly what you could do. I'm not going to be shaping them, I'm not going to be trying to do anything particularly clever with them. I'm not going to be doing any kind of theory crafting over how and what changes do what to a bullet's properties and that sort of thing. Namely because there's no point. This is still a beta branch and things could change quite dramatically between now and when this is released, which should happen in the next couple of days. But let's go ahead and put down an ammo controller. Now this is the heart of your ammo manufacture. Now, it says there, parts available, 0 and 0 boxes. You can go into the interface, or you should normally be able to go into the interface, but it can't at the moment because we haven't put down any ammo customizers. This is going to be squirrely and buggy. This is a dev branch after all. Now, effectively, like missiles, each of these gives you 2 components that you can build with on your shell. We'll make a very, very simple one to start with. There we go. 4 things. These are all the parts that we've got. Gunpowder casing, explosive warhead, solid warhead, fragmentation warhead, stabilizer fin, sabot warhead, altitude fuse, proximity fuse, penetration depth fuse. Now that's really interesting. Timed fuse, and then the tips are armor piercing capped head, squash head, composite head, shaped charge head, and sabot head. We'll get to all of that in just a moment. The next thing you're going to need is shell parts. Now, the interesting thing with this is that you need parts. These are filled up by your ammo barrels, and then the shell parts are used to construct the shell, and then this is fed into flak monkey mark. What? That is fantastic. I've not actually looked at that before. And then the shells are fed into the turrets or into whatever you're feeding them into, whether they're stationary turrets or not. You need one of these. You can either build it on the turret or on the hull, but if you build it on the hull, there is going to be an extra step you're going to have to go through eventually. Now, you're also going to want an output feeder. Now, this goes more or less anywhere. I like to stick it right at the head of my ammo manufacturer, and this will feed to wherever we're going to send it, so to the actual turret or firing piece itself. Now, we're going to need a couple of ammo barrels, obviously, just to keep all of this going. Let's go ahead and just fill this up with ammo barrels, so we've got plenty of them. And as per usual, the ammo barrels will, the more of them you got, the faster it'll recharge. I think the more of these you've got, the faster it's going to affect it, because each of these is probably going to be able to pull from the ammo barrels at a certain speed. Now, the fun bit. Down here, we've got all sorts of information. It's an invalid design because it doesn't do anything. If we wanted to quickly make it a valid design, all you have to do is select the front and put on a head. Maybe, I don't know, a squash head. And you also want something from the middle. Let's put on a fragmentation warhead. There we go. I actually don't want a squash head. I've changed my mind. I want a composite head. The composite head, high velocity, armor piercing for thin to medium armor that is likely to fragment if armor is too great. You've got the sabot head, highest armor penetration but reduces explosives effectiveness and has no chance of fragmentation post armor. So it'll fragment on the armor, but once it's inside, it's not going to. Presence of this head sets explosive damage to 25%. Shape charge. No armor penetration, but uses all immediately connected explosive charges to blast a stream of superheated armor-piercing copper into the target. Now, if you wanted to make a giant shell and just fill it with explosives and then have a squash head on the end, that would be a good idea. Rather, not a squash head, sorry. Was it the squash head? No, it was the shape charge head. The squash head significantly lowers the armor penetration, but concentrates all explosives placed directly behind it into a shockwave that can create interior spalling and destroy large chunks of vehicle walls. So I guess you would still actually want explosives behind the squash head as well. And then the AP capped head is simple. Standard shell head, which provides an increase in AP with low change of shell fragmentation post armor. We're just going to be going with the shape charge, and then we'll slap in a HE warhead. 2 gunpowder casings. Now, this is the interesting stuff. Down here, it tells us all of the vital statistics. Now, I'm not going to... This is the part that I was thinking about when I said I'm not going to do any theory crafting. I'm not going to play around with this too much to show you how every little thing changes all of this. That'll come after the... Well, probably not immediately when this patch hits, because it'll probably still have a period of rapid change as live tests from the players are giving feedback to the dev and things are being tweaked. But the theory crafting will come after the patch has been released. Maybe a couple of days, maybe a patch or 2 down the line. But it's interesting. This will tell you the requirements or the actual ammo loading components on the turret are gonna be. So, for example, the gauge increases required. We don't need any to fire this shell, but if we increase the diameter, you're actually going to need a certain amount of gauge increases so that the barrel can handle the size of the shell. That is really, really interesting. And this is also giving me a demo of what the shell will look like in the background there. Optimal barrel length is 1.7 meters. At that point, it'll have an accuracy of 1. If you make it longer, it's going to be even better. Optimal barrel length propellant burn is 2.2 meters. This length of barrel will burn all of the propellant and ensure the shell attains maximum muzzle velocity. Length of shell rack needed is 1 meter. So it's a very small shell. If we expand it, maybe, there we are, we need a 2 meter shell rack length. That'll come into play later on. The 3 options you have is 1 meter, 2 meter, and 4 meter. Shell length, ignoring the casing, just so that you know how big it is. Expected muzzle velocity is 134 meters a second. If we increase it, it's going to get even faster. Ammo part cost, 20 ammo parts per shell, 2.4 at the smallest. Expected reload time from a clip. So once it's in the clip, that is on the turret itself, To reload it will be 1.3 seconds to load it into the auto-loader and ready to fire. The time taken to move from rack into the auto-loading mechanism, at which point it will be ready to fire, or time to pass shell to ammo clip, the time taken for a shell to be fabricated from this ammo supply at the required gauge and be sent to the ammo intake. The ammo intake is a component on the turret itself that we'll cover in a moment. Expected time for barrel cooldown after firing. The cooldown time will be increased if the velocity is increased, so if we push all of that up, expected cooldown is 50 seconds. Now, this is something that a lot of people pointed out with the AA gun on the Aavatar, that a cannon that powerful shouldn't be able to spit bullets out as fast as the AA gun could. Initially, in my initial design, I actually scaled it back to slow it down a little bit to make it at least a little bit less ridiculous. But this is now actually putting a hard limit. The size of the shell, the speed the shell is going to be exiting the barrel is going to enforce a certain cooldown period for that barrel. There are ways that you can help with that, though. The expected recoil force, fantastically high. Will be modified by particular barrel types and increased by railguns. We'll cover railguns soon. Kinetic damage, fairly high, but then again, this is gigantic and needs 8 gauge increases. We don't want that. We will put it all the way down there. So recoil is still, not too bad. The cooldown is much better now. This would be suitable for a very rapid fire gun. Expected armor piercing 0.3. That's not really that good. Expected explosive damage 82. Expected explosive radius is 3 meters. That's actually not bad for such a small shell. Hesh spalling metric. We're not doing anything with that. Hesh thump damage. Heat penetration metric is 6. The number of meters per square root AC of heat penetration. Heat is effective versus armor, so if the value is 4 and there is 1 meter of armor class 4 material, then 2 high energy projectiles will get through this armor. Heat particulate count, the number of particulates to be emitted in the heat blast. So there's a lot of the information here. Gauge slider is for reference only. Right, so we've decided on our shell, and that is now ready and will be fabricated for us. Let us make a very simple little turret to use this. I could just make a static turret, but we won't. Actually, no, we will, because it will allow me to show off the mantles. Now, they are seriously awesome. Seriously awesome. Okay, so we want a firing piece. Advanced cannons down here. Advanced firing piece is the first thing you want. You want it to be firing straight forward. Now, all things good so far. It's given us a lot of information, things like railgun speed, increased needs. We don't even have any of that. Most of the data is not going to be given to you until you're actually loading a bullet. Now, the way we're going to load this thing, as this isn't on a turret, I don't believe we'll actually need one of these, an ammo router. A vent for routing ammo cables from constructibles to sub-constructibles. If you want to feed ammo from a hull to a turret, you'll need one on the hull and one on the turret. They can be placed anywhere. In my experience so far, you only actually need it on the turret. But let's go ahead and place this down. Actually, let's place it down slightly better. No, that's still wrong. There we go. I like it to aim the way the firing piece is going. And look at the texture. It's absolutely glorious. Now this will allow that to feed up to it. The next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to put on some of the components. We don't need any gauge increases, so we're not going to worry about those for now. We specifically don't need to panic about that at all. We may actually be able to connect this there, actually. Let me just have a quick look if we can do that. It might be a little bit easier. If you want to feed, it can go anywhere, apparently. This is not connected to a firing piece, though. That is connected to the firing piece, otherwise it would be telling me it was not. Let me go ahead and place that down. There we are. That is now connected to a firing piece. That is good. Now, if we go ahead and grab one of the auto loaders. Now, if you remember, our shell only requires a 1 meter, so we'll just grab a 1 meter and we'll plonk it in there. It's not connected to the connect to gauge increases, connectors, or firing piece itself. If we connect it here, it should work. There we go. 0 shells in 0 racks. Now, we actually need to put on some clips. Now, we could connect the ammo supply directly to the auto-loader. And I'll quickly demonstrate how you could do that, actually. If we put in a ammo... Where are we? Ammo input feeder. Except ammo from an ammo output feeder can connect into autoloaders or the front and back of ammo clips. So this is the output. Our shells are being fabricated, put into this, and then it's looking for an input to receive it. If we put this there, then we could say, yeah, go ahead, bring that ammo in. That's the one I want you to take it from. And it's just that little click lets us know there's 1 shell in there. However, it would take, after every firing, we'd need to wait for another shell to be fabricated and sent across. That's not optimal, as you can well imagine. So we're going to have a 1 meter clip. We can place one there, we can place one here. I believe we can just flat out place them on the sides without any issue. Let's place that down. There we go. Not connected. Okay. That is connected. That is not connected. So it has to go on the top then. Never mind me. I am learning as I go as well. Now we've got 2 clips. If we go ahead now and select the input feeder and slot that in there, tell it to connect to this controller. There we are. Now that's not connected apparently. Oh, was that upside down? Aha, ha, 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 ha. I believe I may have had the the orientation messed up. There we go. There we are. That's perfect. I probably could have had them upside down then. In fact, let's quickly test that. We'll grab this. Hold down Tab to flip it upside down. Will that connect? Yes, connect. Connect's fine. Well, that's quite useful then. Let's go ahead and add in an input feeder. There we are. And tell it to select this. There we go. Now, what we should see, if we come out of build mode, there should be little tiny shells in this. Somewhere. Where are you? Are you putting them at the top? Are you putting them up here? Ah, there we are. It's filling up here. So one of these fills all of them then. That's quite interesting, actually. I wonder if doing that... Again, I'm learning along with you in some of these cases. If I put it here, will it also fill the clips? Oh, it will. Oh, now that is very good. That is very good. Let's rotate this way and see if that's connected. Nope. Can I connect it that way? Yes, I can. So I could just create one input into this single autoloader, and it's going to fill up all of the clips here over time. So it's going to have a fairly extensive ammo capacity. And there you can see our little shells there, and they will change in size depending on what we do. If this needed a larger gauge, then they could increase in size and all of that kind of goodness. Now, the next thing I want to do is show you how the mantles work. Now, these are actually pretty interesting. We will get to the gauge increases in the hydraulic recoil absorbers and things like that in time. Now, this is an omni mantle. If I place this about there, you'll see the front is now just a dome. Within this dome, a barrel can work. For example, I'll show you what it would work like if I just had a regular barrel. There are only 2 types of barrels, standard barrel and the muzzle brake. Muzzle brake reduces recoil, but slightly lower speed as well. We don't want any of that. No, no, no. So there we go. We've now got a bunch of information based on the shells that are being loaded in. Shell diameter 0.06, length 0.24, shells racked 45, cooldown effectively 0 seconds, recoil force, inaccuracy very low. However, this, as you might imagine, has no ability to really change direction. It's got such a minimal amount of aiming. You can kind of see it a little bit, but it's barely there. If I add in a predictor, it'll be a little bit easier on us. Let's go ahead and grab a predictor. Plonk it there. Now, if we're using this, there we go. It's barely able to move around. Most places it can't aim at all. Not very useful. Can't aim in that direction. But there we go. You'll notice there's actually a little bit of a distortion. Little bit of... I'm not actually sure what the English term is for it. The kind of distortion in the air from the force of the shell leaving the barrel. But it's actually quite nice to see, especially on larger gauge weapons. But we've seen that this doesn't really look around very much. That's nothing new. Guns don't tend to. But if we add in this 1 meter Omni mantlet right there, and then build some barrels on it. There we go. Now we can aim much better. It's basically moving around on the mantlet. I wish I could get in front to show you, but effectively this barrel can move around on this surface, as if this surface were rotating. I'm sure the concept is quite familiar to many of you. But what is really nice is there's several different types of mantlets that we have. This is the 1 meter Omni. We can have a 3 by 3 meter Omni. Again, even azimuth and elevation arcs. Let's look. Oops. That was not what I wanted to do. We want to be staring in this direction. We want to replace this. As you can see, gigantic. Much wider arc now, because it's a much wider mantlet. If we go in there again, we've got elevation mantlets. So, donk. Now, this one's got a much narrower azimuth, but a much better elevation control, as you might expect. And the 3 meter one is much the same, 3 meter tall elevation. But the 3 meter tall AA mantlet, now that is a different beast entirely. Unfortunately, my predictor is in kind of a rubbish location for that. And one of my connectors are as well. So you'll have to forgive me for that, I'm afraid. But as you can see, this looks fantastic. And it operates much as you would imagine. Doesn't point down too much, but it can practically point straight up. It does not turn to the side, however. So you would really want something like this equipped. Oh, I can see the Argus way up there. But you'd want something like this on a turret, or you just want them on the side of your ship, ready to just shoot as things fly over on strafing runs, that sort of thing. It looks amazing. And let's go ahead and shoot more or less straight up. Go on, just for science. And straight up we go. Hello, Argus. We're coming to say hello. Our speed is dropping very quickly. Oh, our speed is now locked at 77.29987 meters per second. We actually will probably get to the Argus fairly quickly. Goodbye, Earth. Now, we've got some information on this. Fragment damage is 54.77225. Explosive damage is 82. Armor piercing is 0.3. Timed fuse is infinity. Altitude fuse, infinity as well. All sorts of things like that. But unfortunately, the bullet has despawned at that position. Now, we don't know how far away we are. But let me tell you, the railguns can shoot a bullet before it despawns tens of kilometers away. It is actually quite impressive. But there we are. That's an AA gun. Very, very simple. You can set this up in any way. You can make bigger bullets, in which case you might need much larger autoloaders and clips. You can increase the gauge. We'll quickly show off the gauge. I think that's probably worth doing right now as well. Let's have a quick look. Advanced cannons. Now, the way gauge increases work, increases the size of the firing chamber and shell gauge. Now, the gauge increase, as you see there, then you've got the left and right splitter. Opens up to allow the connections out to the left and right and can be rotated to allow up and down links. It does not increase gauge at all. Useful for allowing placement of cooling vent and hydraulic recoil absorbers. Gauge cooling unit. This component vents heat and decreases the cool down time of the barrels, allowing faster firing in certain circumstances. Now that is very, very important to keep in mind. We do not want to lock that. What I would like is to place this there. Now, unfortunately, that is not connected to the firing piece. Can we place it here, perhaps? Like so? No. I think it has to go straight out behind the firing piece, unfortunately. It's a bit of a finicky one, this. There we are. That is now actually connected. And this is loading. Okay, so as this is a static turret, it doesn't need an ammo router. But an actual turret almost certainly would. But let's go ahead and just flop on some gauge increases. So that's 1. And there's 2. Now, the cooldown is 0.05 seconds. It hasn't changed the shell information at all. It's just a bigger bullet shooting it out now. Oh, actually, no, I tell a lie. It is loading in larger shells. That's very interesting. I thought it didn't do that. But there we are. 2 shells and 8 racks. So it's actually increased the size of the shell a fair bit as well. Now we've got recoil force is 17,000. Inaccuracy is 0.7. The shell diameter has increased proportionately. Let's go ahead and shoot one of these shells just to see what the information on it is. There we go. Fragment damage is 94. Explosive damage is now 423, which is quite impressive. But if we head back, then we can go ahead and add down 1 or 2 more things. We can have a gauge cooling unit, for example, right there. Now the cooldown has been reduced. Oh no, it hasn't been reduced at all. It's basically the same as before. I wonder. But the other thing you can do, it does say that it would only drop the cooldown in certain circumstances, so that makes sense. But the other thing you can do is you can have hydraulic recoil absorbers. This component will absorb recoil when the gun is fired. It is to be placed on the gauge increase. I'm not sure how much meters of hydraulics for, maybe. You need to orientate this down, or up, I suppose. But I've not really seen how this affects it overall. In fact, we probably need it a little bit further down. But it has reduced the recoil force. If we do this, recoil force is down considerably at this point, which is actually quite nice to see. But there we go. So that is a basic cannon for you. This one significantly more powerful than the simple little AA cannon we had before, though that one didn't have enough bullets to or rather it only had 1 autoloader, so it couldn't really fire that fast. But in a nutshell, that is the basic cannon. Okay, now for railguns, I've reduced the mantlet from the AA mantlet, and we are going to start placing some things down. Now, railgun magnet attachment fixture needs to be put onto the firing piece itself, which is why I got rid of the large AA fixture. Now we're going to place these down. You can place it on the top, bottom, left, or right of the firing piece. We'll place it on the left and the right. I don't think you have to, but I think it looks a lot better if you do. Then you're going to have the railgun magnet, the barrel magnet. Accelerates cannon shells to a high velocity. Place these on the side of the barrel with a railgun attaching fixture directly behind them, basically on the side of the firing piece. Again, on the top and the bottom is also acceptable. And then you just build them out to the length of the barrel. Or maybe a little bit over, it doesn't really matter too much. Now, that doesn't look particularly impressive yet, but it does get better. But one thing to note with this is that you don't need to change your cannon. Your cannon can still fire exactly the same shells. It's just using magnets to propel the shells a little bit faster out of the barrel. That's all the railgun stuff does, is it makes it shoot the bullets faster. So you can actually have just a regular gun and then just slap these things on. There you go, you've got a railgun. Now, we're going to want railgun batteries, and effectively, this works much the same way as a regular simple weapon drill does. You use batteries, you use charges. The more batteries you've got, the more charge it can store, and the faster it's going to spin these magnets around. The more charges, the faster it can pull that power out of the engine every time it fires to return itself to a fast spin. So the more of these, the better, basically. So let's just place one down there, make sure it's connected. It is. And then we're going to just do this because we're super lazy. Or at least I am super lazy. Then we're going to get a charger. We're going to slap it up like that. And then just all the way out again. All the way down. Then all the way back. Until we hit the the loaders. And then, for the sake of it, we'll do this as well. There we go. Now, this is an awful lot of charges and an awful lot of battery, but then it's a railgun, so you kind of expect it to be kind of ridiculously OP. However, this is not doing anything yet. There's no railgun charge. We don't have an engine. Railgun speed increase isn't there. Recoil force, nothing has changed. All we need to do is slap down an engine, and because we're not building this on a turret, it's as easy as going to prefabs, grabbing your preferred engine, coming back out, facing the right way, and boom, there we go. Engine. Engine's immediately working fairly hard. Let's place down a fuel tank and a fuel processor as well. There we go. The engine's actually sucking quite a lot of power out at the moment, but as we can see, look at the recoil going up. Look at the railgun charge. Look at the railgun speed increase. It's increasing this bullet over 800 meters a second at the moment, and that is just going to keep spinning. Now, I'm not sure if more magnets, that is magnet rails, for example, as I said, you can have them on the top and the bottom as well, so you could have them on every single point, whether that would make any difference. But eventually it will cap out. There is a maximum to this, and in this case, it is an increase of 1,208 meters a second, and has increased the recoil by a lot. Over 70, I can't remember exactly what the recoil was before, but it's around 75,000 the recoil has increased. The inaccuracy has dropped a little bit, I believe, but I'm thinking you can put these charges down anyway. I'm not entirely sure of that, but let's go ahead and test this out, and boom, look at that going. Look at the speed, straight out of the barrel at that speed. I have no idea how far away I am. Space and time is starting to bend around us at this point. Easy way to check though is, for the sake of testing, place down a single AI mainframe. Boom, there we are. Is this charged up all the way? Yes, it has. Okay. Kapow! Goodbye, AI mainframe. You're now past 5,000 meters away from me. You are now further than 10,000 meters away from me. We are now beyond 15,000 meters. 20 kilometers out. 25 kilometers out. We'll probably reach like 50 kilometers before this despawns, so I'm not going to wait that long. We're just going to go back. Needless to say, crazy far. As you can tell but from the predictor, there's no bullet drop. This is going to fire straight. But the last thing we can quickly test, and this is something I don't know the answer to, is, let's see, railgun charges. Using engine power to charge railgun batteries. Can I just place these anywhere? What does it say? Not connected to firing piece. Does it just need to be on the firing piece, or does it need to be on the battery? Not connected to firing piece. Well, you know, okay, fair enough. Let's build this out a little bit, and we'll find out the answer to that question. Because if these don't need to be on a battery, then you would be able to make something that could pretty much recharge almost instantly. Not connected to firing piece. None of them are connected to firing piece, but this is definitely there. Okay, so they do need to be attached to a battery. Well, it's worth knowing, I suppose. But as you can see, crazy, crazy powerful. And I guess, before we go anyway, we'll do one more thing. We'll just have a little bit of fun with this. Plunk. No, wrong way. Let's make this a little bit more interesting. We're not going to need much gunpowder. It's a railgun. What we want is some frag warheads behind some HE warheads, and then a shaped charge. I think this is a reasonable thing. Shell rack is only 1 meter. See how much it needs, and there we go. We don't want it more than that. All right, there we go. Let's have a look at the expected recall. It's going to be so much more than that. Time to pass shell to ammo clip, explosive, all of this information I approve. Now, that should start appearing in this. It'll take time though, and if you hover over this, it'll tell you how many seconds have passed since it last received any ammo. But I believe it should just start loading those. Now that seems a lot bigger than this is going to be able to accept. I think. I mean, it says it doesn't need more than we've got here, but... Oh, perhaps that's based on just 1 gauge increase. How about we take one of these off then? There we go. I think we just got a new shell. There we are, yes. Now that's going to take us a long time to fill up, which is unfortunate, I'll be honest with you. But still pretty funky. But there you go. Those are the new cannons in a nutshell. Very cheap and nasty showcase of it. I didn't go into very much depth. Just wanted to kind of show you, or give you a glimpse of what is possible, so that you can start imagining what you're going to do once this update comes out. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have any questions or comments, by all means, you know where to leave them, but I will see you in the next video. So until then, and as always, do take care.